Your vision starts fading, and everyone tells you it's just age. Wear stronger glasses, use brighter lights, accept it. But there's a fruit, one most people eat at the wrong time of day, that researchers quietly linked to the cells behind your eyesight, and almost nobody is talking about it. Let me tell you something that changed the way I think about eyes forever. I had a patient, Colleen, 53, a wedding photographer who'd built her entire career on seeing what others missed. The slight tilt of a bride's chin, the shadow falling across a ring at the perfect angle. Details that made her work extraordinary. And then, over the span of about 14 months, those details started disappearing. Not all at once, that's not how it works. It was quiet, gradual, almost polite in how it crept in. She'd review a shoot and realize she hadn't noticed the smudge on a lens. She'd squint at her editing screen, zoom in further than she used to, adjust colors she once nailed instinctively. Her night drives became a source of dread. Oncoming headlights smeared into starbursts she couldn't blink away. She started declining evening reception jobs, made excuses, rearranged her schedule around daylight hours. Her husband noticed before she admitted it to herself. He'd catch her leaning closer to the monitor, rubbing her eyes after 20 minutes of editing. He asked if she needed new glasses. She already had new glasses. 3 pairs, actually, each slightly stronger than the last. She told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I don't feel like I'm going blind. I feel like the world is slowly pulling away from me." That sentence sat with me for days, because it wasn't just about eyes. It was about losing grip on the life she'd built. And here's what troubled me most. Colleen had already done everything she was supposed to do. Annual eye exams, updated prescriptions, blue light glasses, lutein supplements from the pharmacy shelf, omega-3 capsules, carrot juice twice a week, because someone told her it would help. She was checking every conventional box, doing it all right, and the erosion continued anyway. That's when I started digging into something that most professionals don't spend enough time examining. Not the lenses, not the cornea, not even the optic nerve in isolation. I went deeper, into the retina itself, into the layer of cells that silently determines whether you'll see the world clearly at 67 or struggle to recognize faces across a room. And what I found there pointed to something completely unexpected: a fruit. Specifically, a fruit eaten at night. Now, before you roll your eyes, wait. This isn't some folk remedy wrapped in wellness packaging. What I'm about to share with you comes from research conducted across multiple countries, involving thousands of participants. And the mechanism behind it is so elegant that once you understand it, you'll wonder why this isn't common knowledge. Let's slow down for a moment. Because to understand why this works, you need to understand what's actually happening inside your eyes when your vision starts declining with age. Most people assume vision loss is about the lens getting stiffer or cloudier. And yes, that's part of it. But there's a deeper layer, literally. At the back of your eye sits the retina, and within the retina lies a tiny region called the macula. It's barely 5 millimeters across, and it's responsible for your central vision: reading, recognizing faces, driving, everything that requires sharpness and precision. The macula is under constant assault. Every single day, light enters your eyes and generates what scientists call reactive oxygen species. Essentially, tiny molecular fires burning inside your retinal cells. Blue light from screens, UV radiation from sunlight, even the normal process of seeing generates these destructive molecules. When you're young, your body has robust systems to extinguish those fires. Antioxidant enzymes, macular pigment that acts like internal sunglasses, a constant supply chain of protective compounds delivered through your blood. It's an elegant system, almost beautiful in its engineering. But as you age, that supply chain weakens. The protective pigment thins. The fires burn a little longer before they're put out. And the photoreceptor cells, the ones that actually convert light into the images you see, start accumulating damage. Microscopic damage. The kind you can't see on a standard eye exam until it's already significant. This is the part nobody explains well enough, and it frustrated me for years. It's not that your eyes suddenly break, it's that the nightly repair process, the one that happens while you sleep, gradually falls behind. Every night, your retinal cells attempt to recover from the day's oxidative damage. And every year after 40, they recover a little less completely than the year before. Think of it like this. Imagine a crew that repairs a highway every night. For decades, they patch every crack, fill every pothole. But slowly, the crew shrinks. The materials run low. The cracks start outnumbering the repairs. Eventually, you're driving on a road that's more patch than pavement. That's your macula after 50. So where does the fruit come in? This is where it gets fascinating. Researchers in Japan, and later in Europe and Brazil, began studying the specific nutrients that support this nighttime repair cycle. Not just general antioxidants, not just vitamins you've already heard about. They were looking for compounds that could cross the blood-retinal barrier, a highly selective filter that blocks most substances from reaching the delicate inner tissues of the eye. And they found that one fruit, when consumed in the evening hours, delivered a particular combination of anthocyanins and polyphenolic compounds at precisely the time when retinal repair activity peaks. The fruit is the bilberry, close relative of the blueberry, but not the same. Not even close, biochemically speaking. If blueberries are a candle, bilberries are a floodlight, at least when it comes to what they deliver to your retina. Bilberries contain a concentration of anthocyanins, roughly 4 times higher than standard blueberries. And the composition is different. These aren't just any anthocyanins. They're the specific types, delphinidin and cyanidin glycosides, that studies have shown can cross the blood-retinal barrier, accumulate in retinal tissue, and directly support the photoreceptor regeneration cycle. Most antioxidants can't do that. They get filtered out long before reaching the back of the eye. But these particular compounds, they get through. Here's the part that made me pause. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Science tracked participants who consumed bilberry extract in the evening versus the morning. The evening group showed significantly better adaptation to low-light conditions and measurable improvements in contrast sensitivity after 12 weeks. The morning group? Moderate improvement. Nothing remarkable. The timing mattered. And the reason is beautifully logical. Retinal repair peaks during the first 4 hours of deep sleep. When bilberry anthocyanins are circulating in the bloodstream during that window, they become available precisely when the photoreceptor cells are most actively regenerating. Colleen didn't know any of this, and honestly, I didn't either, not until I went looking. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about a miracle cure. I never use that word, not with patients, not in conversations, not anywhere. Because the body doesn't work in miracles. It works in systems, in supply chains, in timing. What bilberries offer is raw material, delivered at the right moment, for a repair process your eyes are already trying to perform every single night. They're not adding something foreign, they're restoring something that was always supposed to be there. When I explained this to Colleen, she looked at me the way most patients do when they've been burned by too many promises. Skeptical, guarded. Rightfully so. She'd tried supplements before. She'd read articles, followed influencers, bought expensive drops that did nothing. But I asked her to try something specific. Not a pill from a shelf, not a powder mixed into a smoothie, but actual bilberries, a small handful, eaten about 90 minutes before bed. Consistently, every single evening. No skipping weekends, no forgetting for a week and doubling up. The first 4 weeks, nothing obvious. She told me she almost quit. Almost. But she stayed with it, partly because she trusted the science I'd showed her, partly because she had nothing left to try. 8 weeks in, she called my office. Not for an appointment, just to tell me something. Her voice was different, lighter. She said the starbursts were smaller, the headlights at night were less blinding. She caught herself editing photos at normal zoom for the first time in over a year. She'd noticed the lace detail on a veil she was retouching, a detail she would have missed completely 3 months earlier. Was it dramatic? No. Was it everything? No. But it was the first time in 2 years that the direction of her vision had reversed. Instead of slowly losing ground, something was holding. Something was quietly, stubbornly rebuilding. And that matters more than any dramatic headline ever could. Now, I want to go deeper, because the bilberry story doesn't end with anthocyanins. There's a second mechanism that researchers uncovered, and it's one that connects directly to a problem most people over 50 experience, but rarely associate with their eyes: chronic low-grade inflammation. You've heard of inflammation in the context of joints, gut health, heart disease, but your eyes are among the most metabolically active organs in your body. The retina consumes oxygen at a rate comparable to the brain, and where there's high metabolic activity, there's vulnerability to inflammatory signaling. As you age, a process called para-inflammation develops in the retina. It's not full-blown inflammation, it's subtler. A low hum of immune activity that, over years, damages the delicate architecture of the macula. The retinal pigment epithelium, the support layer beneath your photoreceptors, starts to thin. Drusen deposits form. These are tiny yellow accumulations that disrupt nutrient flow to the cells that need it most. Bilberry anthocyanins have been shown in laboratory and human studies to modulate this inflammatory signaling. Specifically, they downregulate NF-κB pathways in retinal tissue, one of the key molecular switches that drives chronic ocular inflammation. Let me put that in simpler terms. Those anthocyanins don't just fight oxidation. They calm the immune overreaction that slowly dismantles your macula from the inside out. That's two mechanisms: antioxidant protection during nighttime repair, and anti-inflammatory modulation that slows the structural degradation of the retina. Both supported by the same small dark berry, both enhanced by evening consumption. I find that remarkable, truly. And you know, this is one of those moments where I want to pause and ask you something. If you've been watching this far, if any of this resonates with what you've been experiencing, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? What's been happening with your vision? Drop a comment below and tell me your story, because these conversations matter more than you think. They help other people realize they're not alone. And while you're here, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. I share things here that I wish someone had told my patients years earlier. There's another layer to this I need to mention. Because when I talk about vision loss with my patients, there's always an emotional component that goes unspoken. Losing your sharpness of sight isn't just a physical inconvenience. It's an identity crisis. Colleen wasn't just losing pixels on a screen. She was losing the thing that defined her ability to see beauty that others couldn't. For someone else, it might be the ability to read bedtime stories to a grandchild without straining, or the confidence to drive at night without fear. Vision is independence. Vision is connection. And when it fades, something inside you fades with it. That's why I'm so insistent about this. Not because bilberries are magic, they're not. But because they represent something that most vision conversations completely ignore. The idea that your eyes are not just deteriorating passively, they are actively trying to repair themselves every single night. And you can either give them what they need for that repair, or you can let them run on empty and wonder why the blur keeps spreading. Most people choose the second option without even knowing they made a choice. That's the tragedy. The research also revealed something about the blood vessels that feed the retina. And this is the third mechanism, which I think is just as important as the first two. Bilberry compounds improve endothelial function in the microcapillaries of the eye. These are the tiniest blood vessels in your entire body, thinner than a human hair, and they're responsible for delivering oxygen and nutrients to the macula. As these vessels stiffen and narrow with age, nutrient delivery drops. The macula starves slowly, in a way that no eye exam can detect until the damage is well underway. Bilberry anthocyanins help maintain the flexibility and responsiveness of these vessels, keeping the supply lines open when they would otherwise be closing down. It's not one thing, it's a cascade. Antioxidant protection, anti-inflammatory signaling, vascular support, photoreceptor regeneration, all connected, all feeding into each other, all enhanced by the same fruit, all optimized by evening timing. When was the last time something this simple addressed a problem this complex? I honestly can't think of another example. A European cohort study following over 2,000 adults over 5 years found that those with the highest dietary intake of anthocyanin-rich berries had a 41% lower risk of developing advanced macular changes compared to those with the lowest intake. 41%. From something that grows on a bush. But here's the critical nuance. Not all berries are equal, and not all timing is the same. Bilberries outperformed blueberries, blackberries, and acai in retinal bioavailability studies. And evening consumption consistently outperformed morning intake in measures of nighttime visual recovery. So what does this look like practically? A small portion of bilberries, roughly a quarter cup of fresh or the equivalent in high-quality frozen, consumed about 60 to 90 minutes before sleep. That's the protocol that aligns with the research. Not a pill, not a concentrate marketed with flashy labels. The actual fruit. Though bilberry extract in standardized form can work too, particularly if fresh berries aren't accessible where you live. Some of my patients combine this with a brief period of darkness before bed, dimming screens, reducing artificial light, which independently supports melatonin production and retinal recovery. The synergy between darkness and bilberry consumption during the pre-sleep window is something I believe future research will explore much more deeply. Colleen is still a photographer. That's what matters to me most when I think about her. She's not cured of aging. Nobody is. But she's seeing more clearly now than she was 2 years ago, and her trajectory has shifted. Instead of the slow fade she was experiencing, there's stability, moments of genuine improvement. She told me recently that she caught the glint of light off a champagne glass at a reception, the kind of fleeting detail she thought she'd lost forever. I think about stories like hers and I realize how many people are going through the same thing right now, silently, assuming nothing can be done. If that's you, or someone you care about, please share this video with them. Sometimes a single piece of information, arriving at the right time, changes everything. And I really mean that. Forward it. Send the link. You might be giving someone back something they thought was gone for good. Here's what I want to leave you with tonight. And I mean this personally, as if you were sitting across from me in my office and I could look you in the eye. Your eyes are not just windows. They're living, breathing, healing organs that work hardest in the dark, in the silence of your sleep, in those hours when you're not even conscious. Your retina is fighting to restore what the day took away. And the simplest, most overlooked thing you can do for them is to feed them, specifically, precisely at night, with the compounds they've been quietly starving for. You don't need to accept the blur. You don't need to keep squinting and pretending it's fine. You don't need to wait until the damage is advanced and the options narrow to a point where the conversation shifts from prevention to management. There is something you can do, starting tonight, not next month, not after your next appointment, tonight. And maybe that's the most important thing nobody told you. That the answer wasn't in a stronger prescription or a brighter lamp. It was in a small, dark berry, eaten quietly before bed, while your eyes were getting ready to heal themselves. You just didn't know they were waiting for it. If this is the first video of mine you've found, welcome. Stay close. Subscribe. Because what I share here isn't trending advice or recycled health tips. It's the kind of knowledge that accumulates quietly and changes your life in ways you don't notice until one day you realize you're seeing the world differently. in every sense of that word.